Hey guys, Chris from Provo Beast Audio Installation, and today we're doing a backup camera on a 2007 Toyota Rav4. In this install, we're going to show you how to mount your camera, run all the wiring, and integrate to an existing aftermarket radio with backup camera capabilities. Let's get started. Now in this install, the parts that you're going to need obviously is the backup camera itself. These universal kits usually come with a video wire. On the video wire, most of them are pretty similar nowadays, where it's unique having a little trigger wire hang off. Essentially what that does, it's this red wire that runs in parallel with the video wire, and it comes out on the other end of the plug, and you can use that as your trigger wire. We have a power and ground harness for our camera to power up the camera, and then the camera itself. Now there's so many different variations of cameras, some that bolt up the license plate, some that hard mount like this one does, some have LEDs on the front and some don't, so it just kind of depends on what you're planning on to install. Now if you have any questions on the fundamentals of installing a backup camera, or you just want more info on how all this works together, down in the description or up in the card here, we're going to have a link for you that allows you to see our video on backup cameras explained, and it's super helpful. Alright, so with the radio out for the backup camera, we ran our video wire. Now this is the video wire that will take the video signal from the camera itself and bring it all the way up to the radio to display. And so we ran this, and we're starting from the radio cavity and we'll work our way backwards. But we ran that through, and that just comes out there. We just fished it through. We're going to run it all the way on the passenger side to the back area, because as the hatch opens, since it swings out outwards and the hinges are on the passenger side, that's where the grommet is, and that's why we're running it on this side of the car. So once we get everything buttoned up back behind the radio, we're going to start running this to the back on the passenger side of the vehicle. This will plug into the RCA, the brown input, or the video camera input on the back of the Pioneer radio. Now this little guy, remember, since it runs in parallel with our video wire, the other end of this wire comes out on the other RCA end. This is our trigger wire on our Pioneer, at least most Pioneers and other similar radios. The backup camera trigger wire is purple-white, and you need to hook that up in order for this to automatically be triggered when the vehicle is in reverse. So we're going to connect this little red trigger into that, and on the other end we're going to connect this little red wire on the other end into the positive wire of our reverse light lamp in the back of the car. So when that lamp turns on, this turns hot. This supplies power to this wire here, which automatically cycles the camera over to reverse. Now we also hooked up our trigger wire, and now let's get the radio back in the dash. So at this point of the install, since we got our video RCA cable connected to the back of the radio, we have our trigger wire hooked up to the purple-white wire of the Pioneer. That's about it for this end of things. What we need to do now is continue our video cable back to the hatch area. It's more of a fifth door, and we're going to run it through the grommet into the license plate area and get everything buttoned up. Alright, so at this point what we've done is run our video wire that we have here. We've worked our way up the kick panel and we've made it to this point, but we just don't want the cable hanging outside. We've already moved most of the pieces back here, but we're going to pop this panel up briefly. So so we can run our cable up underneath it so we can keep a factory clean look. In order for us to get through this grommet, what we need to do is go ahead and pull the jack out to give us the access. Now what we're also going to do is tap into the reverse light, the white light that's at the bottom of your tail light here. What we're going to do is tap into the positive wire there for our trigger for the radio, but also at the same time give us plenty of access so we can get our wire through this grommet, which is probably going to be the hardest part. And then once we're inside the car, we can actually take this interior panel off to give us all the access we need to run it all the way to the license plate area. Now to give us a little bit more space, what I've decided to do, let's just go ahead and remove our anchor point here, the 10 mil. Let's remove the Phillips, the 10 mil here, the Phillips here, probably also this guy here, and then we're gonna pop the panel out just a little bit to get the access we need, because it's a little bit tight with the bracket in here, the bracket that holds the jack. It'll just be a lot easier for us running these cables. Perfect. So that gives us a hole. Now we need to pop the back off here. We are now about ready to start feeding our wire through the grommet here into the fifth door. Now our trigger wire, obviously it's so short, so I soldered on just a longer red wire that I had scrap laying around. So when I feed this through, remember this needs to go to the positive wire on our reverse light to trigger the radio. Okay, so I actually thought I was taking footage of me running the wire through here, and come to find out my phone had died. So unfortunately I missed the footage, but I'm going to go ahead and do an image overlay of what we've done in other installs and how we kind of pull it through this. Fortunately this grommet is big enough where it works out fine, but this is kind of how we do it. We'd use a zip tie and hook it to the end of our wire, and then just fish it through the grommet and then pull it out the other side. It's not the easiest thing. Again, this is probably the hardest part of the install, but once you've done so, with this one specifically, we just fished that wire through one end, came out the other end. Now remember, it's our video cable plus the trigger, because remember we had to run the trigger back so we could tap into the reverse lamp. But up to this point we pull this back, and then there's this harness here that plugs into the back of the light. We unplugged it from the light, and then there's a red wire in that harness. That red wire is your trigger wire, and what we'll do is just plug that harness back into the rear light there so everything works. But that's your reverse light positive, so we connected that, so we're going to plug that back in. That's good to go. And then remember, that connects into that red wire, which goes into our video cable, which runs in parallel all the way up to the purple white wire on the Pioneer radio. Without this, the radio wouldn't know when to trigger. So we've continued running our wire, pulled it on through here, ran it, just zip tied it, we pulled down the weather guard, ran it through. Your access through the grommet is here, so we just pop this on out, put a little hole through it, then we'll put this back in and seal it all back up. That is where it comes on out. And that's where we plug this in. We're gonna put some heat shrink over these connections because these will be exposed. And we'll seal these on up. Then we ran those up this channel here, which came out up above. We just popped this light down. And then we mounted our backup camera there and put a little hole back behind it so the wire could run. Now we can put this back up in there. So we'll adjust the camera and tighten it down. The wire runs down, through, and then out here, plugs in. Now we'll show you how to hook up our power and ground. So this again runs back up inside. And we ran it up here, and then here's our power and ground. And I just tapped into the trigger wire because that's 12 volts. And I tapped into that for power, and then the ground I put a ring terminal and put it there on factory ground. So this is gonna power the camera when the light's on. And at the same time, it's also going to trigger the radio to go in reverse mode when that the reverse light on the other side turns on. So we're going to tape up this connection because it's all been soldered, ready to go. We're going to put the grommet back in and then start reassembling here. We're just about done. Now it's a good idea at this point to go ahead and test it just to ensure everything's in operation. Okay, got the plastic all back on. So let's go ahead and put it on the panel, then the two sides, and then finally the top. All right, so we went ahead and mounted our camera permanently here, got it all nice and tight. All put back together here, all reassembled. All right, so here inside the car, we went ahead and booted things up. We're gonna go ahead and put it in reverse, if you wouldn't mind. There we are, perfect. Back out of reverse. And we're back. That's about it. If you have any questions about this backup camera install, just go ahead and post a comment below. Thanks guys for watching the channel. Appreciate the support, and we will see you in the next video.